instructor at Terrapin Technology. And with me, as always, is the beautiful Betty Nelson. Welcome, Betty.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, especially as I'm ordering off the senior menu these days. But yes, October 2021. I swear it was just October 2020. Crazy how time is flying.
And here we are. The leaves are changing. The weather is absolutely beautiful in most
It
parts.
is. It
So we're
is.
glad that you can all join us today. We've got a very interesting topic, one that is close to our hearts for both Betty and I.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with training. So
Training.
we're going to be talking about that today. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video so you can focus on our presentation and not my background or if my dogs start barking. So we'll go ahead and take care of that now. And we'll go ahead and kind of get into it. Now, during the past year and and then some,
Mm-hmm.
training wasn't really a focus for most of us. We were kind of in survival mode.
We were.
And yeah, and the pandemic kind of set the way things were going to go. So we're going to show you how to accomplish things. A lot of what we're going to show you, these little training tips, are things that we have in a lot of our classes that we do, but also are based on things that we frequently get questions for. So we wanted to provide you some answers on how to accomplish those things. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go into our first topic, and this is one that Betty did a lot of research on.
Yeah. So not only are we going to try to find time-saving things, one of the things that I quickly realized is, Microsoft picked a crazy time to completely change the branding of their product. It was in March of 2020, just as all of us were learning about masks and where to order them and how to sew them. They had to throw us a big curveball. And as you can see by these four arrows, that's pointing to the main components of Office 365, or just Microsoft Office as we used to know it before subscriptions. And this is just a small view of the changes. This is a better view, and somehow my Microsoft 365 jumped on top of the E, but trust me, it's under there. We know how to spell table.
It's just
So,
it's a new acronym somehow. We'll have to figure that out.
table.
It's table, right? Table.
Anyway,
Yeah, but this is a
this
lot of
shows us, right?
changes. Yeah, there's a lot of changes
A
that
lot.
users are dealing with, and Microsoft quickly rolled out a lot of applications. I mean, they've had things like this on the roadmap for a while, but the pandemic just exponentially launched a lot of these things into everybody's life as part of Microsoft 365. So
See?
many, in fact, that Betty and I are constantly like, she's like, hey, did you hear about this? I'm like, no, that's interesting. Did you hear about this? And she's like, no, I didn't know about that one either. So they're
Yeah.
constantly coming out with little things like that.
Well, and I have to say, Joe, I think they're a little ahead of themselves because one of the new things they rolled out, I did some research on. It sounded interesting to me, and it's already on the way out the door. So that's why Joe and I went through this and picked some of the things we really want to share with you right away. And then we plan on doing future presentations digging into some of these other more popular apps, as they're calling them now, trying to jump on the app train. So let's take a look at the first one called Editor.
This one's a very interesting one that Betty had introduced me to.
Right. An editor is Microsoft's version of Grammarly, which is an add-on that you can either pay for or use for free. But editor can be found in both Word and Outlook. So Google it because you're not going to want to write this down, but it shows up in the home toolbar and also on the reviewing toolbar. But in the body of this slide, I'm showing you that you go to File, Options, Proofing, and see, they really hid this, which I'm a little frustrated with. It's under when correcting spelling and grammar in Word. You have to drop down in writing style and go to grammar and refinements instead of grammar. And then when you click on the settings tab next to it, this goes on and on. You can literally change or check boxes so that the editor is watching what you're typing and making sure that you are not using any biases, which is so important in California. And some of these new things, new in the last few years, trying to be gender neutral,
Mm-hmm.
I hope nobody's using ethnic slurs, but you get the point. It's really interesting. And then if we go to the next slide, Joe, tell them about this. This is where they can find it in Outlook.
Yeah, so here in Outlook, the way we got to this is we went to File, you drop down to Options, you go to the section for Mail, and then there's Editor Options. And under Writing Style, you have to choose Grammar and Refinements, and then click on Settings. And that's, as Betty would say, that's where all the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens.
It's just like Broadway. This there's magic in the air. We can feel it sometimes. This feature takes proofing really, like Betty had mentioned, to a completely different level. And the timing's good since we are dealing with a lot of sensitivities in business writing that did not exist even 5 years ago. So
right.
that really, it's a way to help us with those things.
It is. And I just pulled up the slide showing you what happens when you're done. You run the editor, which again is on your home tab, or there's another one icon for it and another place to go under reviewing. But you run through editor and then it will tell you all of the things you have to deal with or might want to deal with and gives you a score. So I think it's a pretty cool tool to check out, especially when you're working on something very important and you want to make sure you're clear, concise, and appropriate.
Very good. So it helps you with your vocabulary if it wasn't your forte in ELA going through school. Now this one is a very interesting one, and I have to admit I remember reading about this and I never looked into it. And when Betty was showing it to me, I got kind of excited about this. It's very interesting.
Well, see, you know why I love this, Joe? Because we're not in the office. Some of us are, some of us aren't. But if you're not and you're giving important presentations, then you can go into Presenter Coach and start your presentation, walk through your slides. It will literally tell you whether the pitch of your voice changes a lot. It'll show you your pace. And you find this on the slideshow toolbar in PowerPoint. And as you can see, there's a feature right there called Rehearse with Coach.
Mm-hmm.
And you would click on that. And when you do that, it tells you we're about ready to go. Are you ready to rehearse? You say yes. And you go through your whole presentation. And at the end, similar to editor, you will receive a score, a rehearsal report, they're calling it, and give you all sorts of information. And they'll even tell you if there's plagiarized content in your presentation. So it's very cool. I love this feature.
Very, very nice. I really like this because it's using some of the new AI things that we've been reading about and we've talked about in the past to help us with things that we do every day without, like you're not in the office, to be able to bounce this off of somebody and to have something that will give you some metrics to help improve things. Yes. About what filler words you need to use, or if you're using them, right. Your pitch and your power and your pace, and et cetera.
Right. And look at the sensitive phrases in the report. Somebody was using best man for the job and they're saying, do you really want to do that these days? Probably not. But again, right. This is stuff we're just used to saying, and we have to get used to unsaying them. And this is a great tool to help us with that.
Very good find. I really, really enjoyed this one. Now, of course, our favorite topic to talk about, Microsoft Outlook, because we pretty much all spend more of our life in this program than we'd like to admit. But there are some really, really nice ways to get more done in Microsoft Outlook. Now, whenever you mention rules kind of scare people or frighten them when you're talking about them. So creating a rule from a message does, though, take a lot of work out of what you manually have to do. And this is referred to in Microsoft Outlook as a process-based rule. And when you create rules based on Outlook items, you can reroute things, you could delete them, you could change the message's importance based on a condition you set or who it's from or the subject. For example, you could set a rule to delete emails from previously identified spammers or spam subject lines instantly, and it will just be taken care of. Outlook also has several rule templates that you can pick from with customized conditions. So if you're like, well, I'm not really sure where to begin, you can use those to kind of get started to do things like sorting your emails faster, and getting back to some of your core business tasks and taking care of them. Again,
That's right.
all to help you not have to do so many things manually. You're taking advantage of these little tricks and tips so that the computer works harder for you. You don't have
That's
to work harder.
right, Joe. And speaking of making it easier and going quicker and saving keystrokes, I don't even want to know my total of keystrokes since I started in law firms in 1980. I think it would freak me out. But in with that in mind, we're underutilizing the dictate option in Outlook because it is so amazing now. Back in the day, you'd have to pay for Dragon Naturally Speaking, and then you'd have to
Hmm.
train it. Nowadays, it is so fine-tuned and wonderful. You can dictate punctuation. It knows what you're saying, period, next paragraph, all sorts of things like that. So save some time and go ahead and dictate. But Joe reminded me you need to be on the latest version of 365,
That's right.
Microsoft 365 to use some of these features.
That's right. We do have some clients that I had worked with that were wanting to use this feature, but they didn't have an Office, or I should say, a Microsoft 365 subscription. They had purchased a license for Microsoft Office 2019 or a newer version. Those licensed versions, not the subscription versions, don't have the dictation as
Right.
part of an option for that. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. They're forcing us
Um,
into the subscription.
They are. Now, one of the other things, this is really nice. I love this little feature. And Betty, you've talked about this before, but we get this question all the time, or people
Well,
forget about it.
yeah, they do. And we're just moving so fast these days. I need all my information in one place. I get scattered. I put stuff in my Apple Notes. I put things here, there. What I love about this is you receive an email. Maybe you're chatting with a friend. You want to meet for drinks. Maybe it's about a location you've never been for a meeting. I drag this email right onto my calendar. And when I let go, it creates a calendar item, and you can turn it into an appointment. You can invite people, whatever. The only thing I want to mention is that it will um, put it on today's date at the next 30-minute block. So you will have to change the date and time and pay attention to the time zone you're in. Some of those changes can be complicated, but basically you have all the notes right there. And if it's for a webinar, I use this instead of the webinar calendar item, which never goes to my Outlook calendar when I download it. It always goes to my Apple calendar, which makes me crazy. But this is
So
great.
I love this one. I love this
Yeah.
one. And you can always combine this, because sometimes we'll find another question I'll get. This is a little off script that we were going to talk about, but we'll get questions like, hey, I know that I received an email, but I can't find it. Maybe I never received it, or maybe I deleted it. And helping them to use the search features in Microsoft Outlook or the advanced search to look for things. And then they realize, oh, maybe I did receive it and I just accidentally dragged and dropped it to the wrong folder or something, can be helpful in finding things when you just know that I know I received it. The person said they sent it to me, or I can't find it, whether it's a calendar appointment or email or whatever, is great to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely.
Now, Microsoft Excel. We won't ask you to put on your middle school algebra hats for all of this, but there are some key things that we get questions about on this one all the time. One of them is designing. We get some questions about this, and this is setting up a design for like the colored, what do you call that? The banded rows in columns and things like that. That comes up
Yes.
quite
Thanks
often.
for putting me
And
on the
you,
spot.
well,
I
it
can't
does. I
remember
mean,
what that's called, but yes, we all know it's
yeah,
called
the
fill.
banded
It's
rows.
filling,
Well, you remember
filling
back
the
in the
row.
back of the old days, we used to like select a row and we give it like a highlight, select the next row, and that would be white. Select the next row, give it a gray color, off and on. And then you would copy and paste things or add rows, and it would throw everything off, and you want to pull your hair out.
Yep.
The design tab will do all that automatically for you now. So it doesn't matter if you add or delete rows or columns, it'll automatically adjust the banded rows and formatting of that very, very easily, all done from the design tab. But you'll notice that I talked about banded rows. I didn't really have that in here, but I just noticed that. Total row. Total row is one that we get a lot of questions about. And the total row, it allows you to very easily select information, and it'll put a row right underneath. There it was. It disappeared on me. Right underneath everything.
So you click on design, then you'll notice in between header and banded rows is total row. So when you put your cursor where you want to start your total, you click total row. So for example, there is where I had my cursor. That's where I'm going to want to have my total row. And then you grab the drop down arrow and you select sum. The total will appear there. And then you know how there's that tiny little handle in the corner? It's the actual bottom right corner. You grab that and drag it to the left, and look at the magic. It just totaled that entire row for you, all those columns.
You got to love the autofill. And the really cool thing I like about this that most people don't realize, because the question I'll get is, oh yeah, that's auto sum. Well, not exactly, because you notice that when Betty did that, the drop down gave her the option of, did you want to do a sum? Did you want to do an average? What kind of number did you want in there? The auto sum feature would only do a sum. This gives you the option of choosing what type of total you want to have, and then just autofill it across. I really like that.
Me too.
Smooth stuff.
Now, this is one of Joe's new tools that he likes. Why don't you tell us about it, Joe?
I've been monkeying around with it, and I really like it. I've been using a tool called Calendly for quite a while. I really, really liked it. And then I realized Microsoft had something part of 365 that I wasn't utilizing. It already had all this stuff and more. And it was really cool because it allows you to have a customer-facing scheduling and appointment tool, and basically to be able to promote, hey, self-service, give the customer the ability and flexibility to schedule things when they want to. But at the same time, you can specify where and what appears on what calendar and for who. And you can even select, as you can see here, I created one where I chose different types of meetings and events that they could pick. And based on those, it would have a time. You could choose an individual. And then, of course, when you wanted that on the calendar, enter in some details, and it would automatically put it on my calendar, and it would give them an invitation to their calendar along with reminders that go along with the whole thing.
Right.
So
I want to mention one thing, Joe, because this is something people get really nervous about. Can people see what's on your calendar?
No, they can't. All they know is that here are your available time slots. That's all it shows them. So the nice thing about this is it's sort of like a proxy between you and your client or potential clients that want to meet with you. They don't have access to your calendar. This is the proxy in between all of that. That'll just let them know what open time slots you have. It doesn't tell them what your appointments are, what the details are, when you're busy throughout the day. It just lets them know what open times do you have available, and then they can pick something within those open times that you've told. And it works great. When I've had to go back and forth in emails to talk to people, to schedule things, all I've had to do is say, hey, click on this. You pick a date and time that works for you. It puts it in our calendars, and then we talk at that date and time.
This is why secretaries are having to look for other work. Joking. But also, do we all remember those emails back and forth? What about this time? What about this date? We're eliminating
so
that
much
hassle.
Lost time.
Yeah, and it just is the stuff that makes me crazy personally. So awesome. Bookings, a new tool. And again, if you guys Google any of these things we're talking about that are new, you're going to learn a ton of info. We're happy to help you, but Microsoft's promoting this very busily. So now we're going to jump into some document management stuff.
And some document management stuff.
Yep. So this is similar to the bookmark feature in World Doc. But it's basically you're adding things to My Matters. So, Joe, since this is your kind of thing, why don't you explain how this works?
Yeah, so I find a lot of times, and this is not just iManage, but any of these, where people will do round robin on things and they keep reinventing the wheel. So, for example, with iManage, I'll find people that are doing searches for things, and they will get so frustrated because they're like, "Yeah, I just want to be able to get to my documents. I don't want to have to fill out a form every time." And I can feel the pain in their voice. And little did they know that, like in this example here, so here I did a search for a client in a matter and I found it. And then once I found it, all I do is I do a right mouse click on that particular matter. This is in iManage. And when you do that, the right mouse click, there is an option for add to my matters. Now, when you click that, it's going to give you an option for giving it a name. Now you can use the default name, which will be the name of the matter, or workspace as they call it in iManage, or you can give it a different name, abbreviate it, a number, whatever works for you. And then once you do that, then over on the left-hand side, in your navigational pane, whether you're working with file site or desk site or through Microsoft Outlook, under My Matters, you will see a shortcut to that. And obviously, if you clicked a little triangle next to it, it would display, the different document types or tags that you have for storing your documents and so forth. So very, very easy. One note though, whenever you add something to My Matters, if you do have desk site or file site open, where it says My Matters on the left-hand side there, you'll just have to click on that, right-click on that one time and choose Refresh, and then anything you've then added to My Matters would show up there. And that way, when you're saving documents, whether it's through Word or Outlook, or if you're in here, you can use it to locate things. You can use it to drag and drop new files into it. Super, super easy. Makes it very, very convenient to work with things that you work with frequently. And of course, once you're done with it, if you didn't need it anymore, it's a simple right click on the My Matter that you have there. For example, you see the one for Terrapin Technology. You would right click and say delete. Don't worry, you're not deleting files from the system. You're just deleting a shortcut, though the warning message you get will confirm that, and you're good. It's just a bookmark, a way to make it real easy to kind of, again, find things and save things via iManage.
Yes, and in the spirit of trying to finish in time, we're going to go a little quicker. And now we're going to talk about some of the cool tips in World Docs. So, one thing that Joe sees a lot, even with veteran users of document management systems, he sees a lot of ineffective searching. So Joe says, there's no reason to search for something, receive 2,000 hits, and then spend the next 10 minutes squinting at your screen trying to get to what you want or need.
It's
Joe
so
says
true.
there's a much easier way. So explain this, Joe.
It is. So once you do your search, it very easily, if once you've done your search in the lower left-hand corner in World Docs, there's a filters tab. And when you click in that, all the profile information for the results you had shows up. Larger and bolder things means there's more hits for something. The smaller and lower, grayer it
Smaller
is, the
size font.
fewer.
Yeah.
The fewer things you have. But each time you click on something to narrow down your hits, you see we've gone down to 231 for over 1,000 to 200. You narrow it down again to one more thing. And like flipping on these light switches and sifting it down, we're down to six, very easily down to 6 documents. And it just means that you don't have to manually go through all this stuff. It's very easy to let World Docs do the heavy lifting and sifting for you. Then you can spend your time on the actual content that's worth your time.
That's right. And another thing, this is similar to what we just covered,
In iManage.
adding a matter to My Matters. This is something similar. This is creating bookmarks.
That's
Joe,
right.
go ahead and explain this.
Yeah, so this is another way. It's very easy to get caught up. I had mentioned before in some of my trainings where we get socially groomed by Google to do searches, where after you do a search, how do I get back and find these files? Well, anytime you do a search for something in World Docs, any search, doesn't matter what it's for, once you perform the search, you can very easily go up to bookmarks on the toolbar, from the menu, and you choose Add This List. Once you've done that, you very easily just give it a name, sort of like what we did in iManage, where you give it a name. And once you've done that, then it shows up in your toolbar as just a one-button click where you can easily go right back to those files. It reperforms a search each time you click on it, showing you the most up-to-date refinements to that search.
That's
Even
right.
to the
And
point to, yeah, go ahead. This is a
sorry.
good one.
Well, what I love about this is two things. It's not a project folder. Some people are so into their folders, but this literally reperforms a search, meaning any new files added since you created the
Hmm.
bookmark are also going to show up in the search. Now, I've heard some people say, I don't want these little tabs showing up on my screen because, real estate in World Docs is important and you want to see everything in your list. So just remember, you don't have to pin your bookmark to the button bar. You could
That's right.
right click on any bookmark, edit it, choose to remove it from the button bar. But when you go up to the word bookmarks in your menu row, they're all right there. They're just not
That's
taking
right.
up any real estate on your screen.
Or the navigational pane on the left-hand side within World Docs as well. But
That's right.
that's not all. And the
What
other
else,
thing that
Joe?
makes, yeah. So, and for our next trick, if you right mouse click on this, you're going to get an option for email to another user. So you can do create a bookmark that performs a search, set it up, and then you can email to somebody. When they get it, it will automatically add it to their bookmarks in World Docs so that they can click on it and utilize it as well. Great tool when you have done a research and you've done a search, you saved it, it shows exactly what the person needs to see. You send that to them, and not only can they see the documents, but now they can also have that bookmark to pull it up anytime they want.
Yeah, it
So,
reminds me almost of culling down a large document production for your attorney to see. It's very
mhm,
similar. He or she could give you the criteria to search by. You perform the search, you get it down to the list you think is relevant. You could email it to your whole team that's working on that matter. It's just a
yep,
very cool way to share information.
very, 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 very easy to do as well. Yeah.
And what else should we not forget? I'm going back one slide. The
Oh,
view
sorry.
button. The view button, which looks like a magnifying glass. If
Oh,
you work
yes, I
with,
didn't highlight that here.
that's okay. If you work with multiple monitors, this is your best friend. Once you click the view button, it will pop out another screen. And again, if you're on two monitors, drag that to the other monitor. Then as you go up and down your list, it will show you the documents in the view feature. You don't have to open
Mhm.
the documents, and you can even highlight text, copy it from the view feature, and paste it into another program. It works great. You never had to open someone's precious document. You know how people are about their documents. So I do love that.
One of my favorite features and underutilized as well.
Agreed. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Acrobat Pro DC, another big company that's part of our life that has also been forcing us into subscriptions. I will say there are a couple cool things about having the subscription. I pay for my own subscription because I've had it for a long time and I want it, whether I work for Terrapin or anyone else for that matter. I love my Acrobat Pro DC. And the cool thing about going to subscriptions is that you can install it on up to two computers for one user, but you can
Mhm.
also say you're away from your computer, you're in a meeting, you've got to do something, and you need these features. You can go to adobe.com, log in with your Adobe credentials, and any subscription you have is now available on the web, and you can work on the web, just like you can get into Outlook or get into Word with Microsoft 365 when you're not at your installed desktop components. So that's wonderful. But the other thing I want to mention is that I think they've made it easier to use, and some people think it's harder. But you'll see on the left side of the screen, when you click on tools, and there are many of them, and they're not all open. Sometimes you have to add them. You can see
Mhm.
add, open. But what I love is that you can search for something you want to do. And even if Adobe is using different language in their icons and their menu items, it will find what you want. So an old-fashioned term, and I used to have one of these Bates numbering stamps that literally was self-inking, and every time you stamped, it moved it to a new number. I think some people don't even realize what the word Bates stamp means, but now we do this in Acrobat, and if I search for that word, you can see it showed me 4 tools where I could do Bates stamping, which is awesome. I knew that I could do it in Stamp, but look, you can do it in Edit PDF. You can also organize pages, scan an OCR. Again, I ran another search for insert pages, and it shows me that I can do that both in organized pages and combine files. So
And
that's
just a
very,
note, these are
very
two
cool.
of the things that we get questions about the most in using Adobe Acrobat. Bates,
That's right.
Bates numbering and inserting pages. Very, very common
That's
questions that come up.
that's right. So when you click on the Tools tab, your entire screen is filled up with the tools. But notice on the right-hand column, that's really where you want your tools that you frequently use. You want them to show up in that list. And you can see if you right-click on a tool that you can open it, you can remove the shortcut, you can move it up, move it down, or learn more about it. And it will pull up information on how to use that tool. So I'm constantly doing this based on the kind of work I'm doing. I will get rid of something off of this quick list on the right-hand side, and then I will add things, etc. So it's pretty awesome how they let you get organized in that regard.
Betty is a PDF Acrobat magician when it comes to
Thank,
those things. So
well, thank you,
she
Joe.
has lots of little tips like that to share in Adobe.
I do. And I mean, I end up writing, like JavaScript and coming up with things. Anytime a client needs to quickly get something done with a massive amount of files, reach out to us. We can probably figure out how to do it and save tons of time of actual work that needs to be done.
Yep.
So I know we're over time, but I had to add this one in again because I only learned it in August, and it has been a life changer for me. If
It's
you use
huge.
Apple products, oh my gosh. Okay, here I am. This is a real scenario. I'll be somewhere where I shouldn't even have electronic equipment, like maybe taking a bubble bath, and I'm on my iPad and I want to order something from Amazon, but I never keep my credentials logged in. I can go to my iPhone and copy my password for Amazon, go to my iPad and paste it in. It goes from device to device. I thought it was crazy. It's not. It works consistently every single time. And in conjunction with that is the Apple handoff. And Google this, look it up, because it's all a little confusing when you first read about it. But you can literally be doing like start an email on your iPhone because that's all you had when you needed to start the email. As soon as you get where your computer is, you can literally hand off that email to your computer or a note or anything and finish it in a second location.
Yeah. And if that wasn't enough, then you also have the universal clipboard, so that it goes across. Betty talked about utilizing that when you're copying things from one place to another. Just to keep in mind that to make all that happen, you have to be using the same iCloud account, as well as you have to have acceptance and the Bluetooth turned on for your devices, because that's how it's going to communicate, is via this method, either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And then the handoff has to be turned on in your system preferences on your Mac, and then on your iOS devices, it's under the settings area. If you tap on settings, you can go to that under the iOS settings.
And that's
You,
one more quick thing I want to add. Settings has gotten so complicated on Apple
mm-hmm.
appliances. I have such a hard time remembering exactly where to go. Well, you don't have to. If you are in settings, the gear icon is settings. If you're in settings, before you make yourself crazy, pull down on the screen and a search bar comes up. You can type in anything you want. And again, just like I showed you with the Adobe feature, where if you're looking for a certain tool or a certain function, it will show you. Same with settings. It will show you where that function is that you want to deal with.
Great
It,
tip, because when I'm helping people with their devices, many a times I will tell them to do that rather than trying to point them through where to go on their
Right.
device to
Yeah.
go and find
Instead of
the
the
app.
click by click by click instructions.
Yes,
Exactly.
many times, many times.
Yeah.
Super helpful. And of course, the Apple handoff, the universal clipboard, the app switcher, which many of you are familiar with when you swipe up from the bottom of your screen on an iOS device to switch between your apps. Super, super helpful in working on your Mac products and your Apple iOS devices, and being able to work efficiently, very, very efficiently, and share information between all those devices.
You bet.
So, boy, that was a whirlwind, let me tell you. And we had a lot more we had to sift through to get it down to just that number of items. We would love to be able to share more with you. If you have questions, please reach out to us and let us know. If you'd like to have a one-on-one session or have a common webinar or training session for your firm, let us know. We would love the opportunity to share information and help educate your users on how to be effective in utilizing the technology and the applications that you have. We're
Yeah.
big proponents of doing that and enabling everybody to do that on their own.
Well, people being more productive is win-win. They feel accomplished. The firm, the company is getting more bang for the buck. It's training really pays off.
It really does. Well, once again, that draws close to our webinar Wednesday. We appreciate you tuning in, and we look forward to sharing with you a topic for next month. This is a very, very popular one, and we expect to be a lot of information to share again. And it's going to be dealing with social media and how to stay safe and secure on those platforms.
That's
So
right.
tune
That will
in for next
be
month.
that will be on November 17th, and you will get a newsletter about that 1 week prior.
Sounds good. Well, again, thank you all for listening in, and feel free to take a look at our other topics that we've published out to our YouTube channel and subscribe. That way you never miss out on a topic, even if you can't be available for our live webinar. Thanks again. And this is Joe and Betty for Webinar Wednesday.
Thanks again. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.